Hello everybody, welcome to Chit-Chat Tuesday. So that's the last Chit-Chat Tuesday I'll be doing. I've loved absolutely every single one of them, and I couldn't finish with a better guest actually. The lovely Charlene Lowe Kemp, absolutely wonderful. We first met each other online, we never actually met in person, but that was during a past life regression. But we'll be talking about her page, her website, the haunted collection that she has. We'll be also talking about the 2 books she's written, the magazine she used to run, and all the wonderful ghostly experiences that she's had throughout her paranormal investigations and her paranormal time. A lovely, genuine team of people that I'm delighted to, I'm delighted to have Charlene with me here right now. Before we say hello to you properly, Charlene, I'm going to mention a couple of people. So we have Cowabunga, hello to you. Hello Patricia, and hello to Chris, and hello to the silent watchers that were starting as well. So I'm just going to share this out. So one of the things that I think would be quite nice to start with really, and it could be quite a long question, it can be quite long to different people, but where your interest in the paranormal really began really, Charlene.
So always had an interest in the paranormal. Kind of grew up with it with my mum, watching numerous things on the paranormal. Reached teenage years and I had predictions, but didn't know there was predictions at the time, but I did. And then when I was pregnant, I had some strange occurrences happen. But it wasn't really until my dad died in 2012 that things really kind of came forward for me. So during that time, I'd had numerous things happen in hospital as he was dying that I couldn't explain. When he passed away, I had things happen at home, which, like, for instance, we'd bought his phone back from the hospital, and it was in the cupboard in his hospital bag, and it was turned off and it started to ring, and we'd gone to the phone and it was dead. You know, it shouldn't have been ringing. But a real turning point was that specific year. I was getting married in August, and he was due to walk me down the aisle. Obviously he died in the March, so he didn't get a chance to do that. And I placed a picture of him at the back of the altar. And my friend, there was obviously, you know, people coming in, waiting to take pictures, you know, of the church and whatnot. I mean, and a few days later, my friend messaged me and said, and just sent me the pictures. And I noticed that on one specific one, there was all like orbs on it. I didn't really think of it at the time, just looked at it and didn't really believe in orbs or anything like that at that point anyway. But something kept telling me to look back at this picture, and I did. And as I zoomed in, it looked as if my dad was stood at the back of the altar. And that really then was like, wow, showing my mum. My mum was like, yep, that's your dad, showing everyone else. And there was like, yeah, that looks like your dad stood there. So that just triggered me, my mum, to go off on a ghost hunt. And that's where we started on an event. And I've never looked back since.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that you had that proof that your dad was there with you at the altar during that time. I know when my dad passed away, we were getting a lot of orbs, and I've used the same camera since, and after about a year, I think it was, there seemed to be a lot less appearing, so it certainly does make you think, and clusters of them would appear together as well. Just checking that my sound levels are okay, if I need to go up or down a little bit, because it's always nice to make sure we're all balanced during these things, so let me know. I must say hello to a couple of people before we ask a few more questions, and thanks for sharing that personal story with us, Charlene.
I don't think I can see the chat, which is unfortunate.
Oh, it should be comments in the corner, so you should click on comments.
Oh yeah, I can.
So Leanne is here. I think I said Chris.
Hi,
If I,
Leanne.
if I didn't, Chris, I'm sorry, and hello again. Noreen, FDL Paranormal, Patrice, Chris said sorry to hear that. Anne Toddington, Lucas, hello Anne, and yeah, that's those are in at the moment. But there's quite a few silent watchers. So hello to you, silent watchers. Hello to anybody that is just enjoying listening to what we're saying. Donna, hello to you. I hope that you're doing really good as well. So before starting the group that you're in and all the wonderful things that you do, like the magazine, the online, the blogs, what was your journey to the paranormal before I wrote? I mean, you had your dad. Was there any sort of groups you're in? Because at one point, if it's anything like myself and so many of us out there, it started just with paranormal groups before going into the field of actually being able to. We're lucky now that we can do things like this, like interviews, live paranormal investigations. But was there any sort of groups that you were with or places that you went to maybe during that time, if you did, that you found particularly interested and then that you captured as well?
So I'll tell you what happened when I went on my first ghost hunt, which was with an events team, because that's how I got into it. And we did St Catherine's Hospital in Doncaster. And it was with a respectable team at the time. And there was a medium. And we'd done a visual. And we came outside. And he turned around to me and he said, "Have you got an auntie who's a spiritualist?" And I said, "No, I don't think so." He said, "Yeah, she's in the spirit world, you have." He said, "She's tried to pass the gift on to you. Tried to pass the gift on to your grandma, but your grandma hasn't took it. And she's tried to pass the gift on to your mum. And your mum's interested, but she's not followed through with anything." He said, "So he's passed it on to you." And he said, "You're going to go far in this." He said, "You are. You're going to make something of this." And this is my first event. And I went home and I said to my mum, "We got an auntie that was a spiritualist." She went, "Yeah, she used to run the circle on Derby Road." I was like, oh my God.
Incredible.
Yeah. And then what happened is that I started going with this events team more. Became very good friends with this medium, and I still talk to him today. We then started running events together. I decided that events weren't really for me. It wasn't. It kind of no offense if anybody likes to do events or run events who may be watching this, but for me, it kind of felt like I was more observing what everybody else was doing rather than having a dab hand on doing it. Because obviously when you're running an event, you can't do a Ouija board because you might get accused of moving the planchette and so on and so forth. So it just wasn't enough for me at that point. I needed to go into something more, so I decided to go into private investigating.
Good. I must get Patricia's up. Love it. I will. I love it if I was passed the gift on of mediumship. Pat, you're much better than you think you are. You're actually really, really good. I know people have been impressed with you. Just going to jog all the sounds because some people said I'm just a little bit on the quiet side, so I'm just going to turn myself up. Carol, hello to you. Pat, lovely to see you, Pat. I haven't seen you for ages. Hello to you, Pat.
Hi, Pat.
And Mandy is here.
Hello.
Chris Williams. Anne Toddington, I've read that. Andrew, so Alison, so a nice amount of people here. So that's absolutely wonderful to see. So if we talk about,
if anybody's got any questions, please fire them.
Yeah, do fire
by
them
all
out.
means.
And we'll also talk about the haunted objects which you've got soon. So I'm going to play with my sound. So if I disappear, please keep talking. I should be back on in a bit, and then I'll check in with people to see if the sound's a bit more balanced. But some of your first investigations when you did the events team, when you went and started doing it yourself, and basically what equipment you use and what you found the best for yourself.
So when I first started investigating, event-wise, we used to do a location on Burton-on-Trent, which was called the Block. That was a very, very interesting building, and it doesn't stand to this day. It actually got demolished. But we actually had, I took a group of people upstairs to the attic because that was where poltergeist activity was meant to be reported. And I'd put everyone in the corner to do the visual. Everyone was accounted for. Everyone was sat down. And we were just calling out, and I was encouraging the guests to call out at this point. We'd had activity. There were like little balls on the floor, and they kept getting thrown at us and things. And it was, if anybody's, if I ever mention it to certain people that was on that event, they'll always say, "I'll never forget that night, Charlene." But anyway, we'd finished the visual, and it was time to go back downstairs, and I'd gone to go and pick up the Ouija board, and the Ouija board was stacked. So the glass was on the floor, which I hadn't put it like, and none of the guests had been anywhere near it. Ouija board on top of the glass, and then there was an item on top of that. It was literally stacked. And looking up poltergeist activity was stacking is a big thing for poltergeist. Never experienced it since. I don't know if I'll experience it again, but 110% everybody was accounted for, and I sincerely don't know who did that. Sincerely don't know who did that at all.
Now, I've only seen, and please let me know how my voice is saying now, if I balance myself out about right now. I say hello to a couple more people that have arrived on, so I know, Paul, it's been a while. Robbie, hello to you. Hello, Robert. Jan Jazz Brown. So I had a question here, actually, from Donna. How did you meet Amy?
Okay. So, so Amy was on another team with members of my previous team, and I was asked if they could come out with me. And it was Chrissy that had asked, and I said yes, and she said, "Is it all right if I bring Amy with me?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." So yeah, Amy come along with Chrissy and Dave and met me and Simon, and we got on like an absolute house on fire. And that was literally it. That's it. The rest is history.
Absolutely, yeah. So hopefully, let me know how the sound is now, everybody, if it's good. Patricia, have you ever taken part in the human pendulum?
Yes, I have, quite a few times. It's a weird experience, and if you've ever tried it, you'll know. And sometimes when I am out on investigations, I will still rock back and forwards, even though I'll not tell the audience, but I still get the sensation if I'm going yes or no. But I do enjoy a good human pendulum, and I do tend to get, like Simon, maybe in the middle of a human pendulum to try him out with it. And I do believe that spirit can give you energy to do that.
Yes, I must admit it's something that I've done, and it hasn't really worked too well for me. I find using a pendulum or dowsing rods seems to have more effect for me than actually the human pendulum. And funny enough, the ones I find most effective are coat hangers. You can get the ones, I find the other ones too wibbly, when you actually get the proper ones. So I like a couple of coat hangers, metal ones, cut, bent in the centre, absolutely perfect, and
wow.
That's what works well for myself. And you said, Charlene,
the only thing with the human pendulum is because it's involved the person, you're always going to be skeptical. and you're always going to try and be more logical because, you know, is the person moving themselves or this, that, and the other? But you know, only truly you know the person in the middle. If you're trying to be as still as possible, and you know that you're still moving, and it's not you that's moving, you know. But from a viewer point of view, you could think, oh well, they're just moving. It's not the greatest technique for evidence as such, but it is a good technique for a personal experience, I'd say.
And I think as well, if people trust you as well, it's something something good.
Well, this is why I always get Simon in the middle, because I know, you know, everybody knows that Simon ain't gonna BS. If Simon is in the middle and he don't move, he won't move. You know, so that's why I'll always get Simon to try things out, because you always know he's not going to BS you.
Let me get Robbie's one up here. Old school coat hangers, cheap rods, and Mum would kill you for bending them. Fortunately, they do work well. I've
never heard of coat hangers. I'm impressed.
They're upstairs. I have to show you. I'll take a photograph of it. They work brilliantly, and I like the sort of that you've got more grip in them in a way. Not grip them really hard, otherwise they're not moving anywhere. But you feel more attached. Personally, myself, to the rods. And Robbie, the ones that I got hold of, it was one at the music venue I used to work at. I think a band member had left one of their coat hangers behind. They were long gone, so I thought I'd put them to good use. So I was repurposing. That's what I was doing, most definitely repurposing. So let's have a look at this. Charlene has taught me a lot regarding the paranormal and spiritual things in general. She knows her stuff for sure. Absolutely.
Thanks,
yeah.
Pat.
Yeah. And I can most definitely second that. Do get your questions coming in. That would be really good. Now, I think, should we talk about your books now? So I just saw, and it was like, I didn't realise this, so I had to look it up, and I'm going to get hold of it on Amazon. But the book about the Divot Box and Paranormal Hauntings, what you're going to see in them, is it best to get them through Amazon or through yourself? How can people get hold of your two wonderful books?
Well, they're on Amazon to purchase, but I am going to get some copies. I only actually posted it this week. I mean, it's one of the things that I've not really put out there as such. And people's like, what? You've done a book? I'm like, yeah, I've done a few. Used to run a magazine. But yeah, just recently, you know, kind of sat back and thought, you know what, I have done quite a lot in this. I've worked hard, you know, and yeah, it is. I see my book and I was quite proud of it. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to post it. So everyone was like, oh my God. But the Debut book is an interesting one, and probably one that I would recommend to get, just because it goes through the history of the Debut box. I mean, there's a lot of questions about it, and there's a lot of, you know, skeptical opinions about it. But I actually interviewed Kevin Mannis for that book. Who was the original book owner, and it was very, very interesting speaking to him regarding it. I then looked through the history, because, you know, obviously he came out with this idea of a demon being a box, but that must have stemmed from somewhere. And if you look culturally, there is items culturally that people have tried to entrap spirits in. You know, your spirit traps is one. So I go into all them kind of different cultural things across the world and over history of how people have tried to entrap spirits, demons, whatever, into items or vessels of some kind. And then it's not just me in the book talking. There is numerous other investigators that feature in the book. So I then asked the demonologist what her opinion was of them, and if she believed if a spirit could be entrapped in a box. I also questioned the antique centre in Inkley, Neil Packer, because he had one, and he kind of gave his thoughts on it and what's happened with the one that he's got in the museum. I then speak to Steve Higgins, which is the owner of Higgy Pop, who is a skeptic, and he actually bought a debug box off the internet, and he questioned the story behind it that they were selling it for. It ended up being a fake, and it goes into his findings of that, and then it goes into a little bit about what I've had with my debug box, and where that kind of come from, because I bought our debug box in about 2016, and if you looked on eBay at that time, there was none. There was none. I mean, nowadays, if you do Google it in eBay or whatever, there is loads going. But during that time, there wasn't a trending item, to be fair. I'd got it off the team. So the team was actually the Haunted Museum in Nottingham. That's and they'd give the backstory to that. And yeah, I had some interesting results with it. So then I kind of run down from a conclusion of what, if you're thinking of buying one, what to look out for, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's different. It's different, and it's a topic that I'm pleased that I've covered.
I will get back to the divot box in a second. But I will get, because I like asking people's questions. Where have you visited that you would never go back to?
Never.
If anywhere.
Is that because it's boring?
There's a few of those, actually. I must admit that I would think twice.
Honestly, there is some locations out there that are claimed to be the most haunted locations, and we've been, and not a lot's happened, and it's been like trying to pull teeth, and I've been like, not going back there. But that's the only time that I wouldn't go back to a location, if when not a lot's happened, and I know that activity can differ on different times, but it's just how I feel there as well. So if I feel that something's gone or something's not there anymore, I'm not gonna be that inclined to go back.
Particularly some of that.
There's not a location that I wouldn't go back to that scared me. I'd go back to any location that scared me, because I am a bit daring like that.
Also, as well, afterwards, you end up talking about it with huge excitement, because it's great evidence that you've captured at that moment. Yeah. But I would say there's like me, that there's no place that I wouldn't go back to. There's been places that have been hugely expensive to get to, and one or two things happened, but I can't say, it was kicking off left, right and centre. And I think people now know that they're onto a good thing. If they have a venue, they can charge up to £1,000 sometimes for a group of you to go along and do an investigation. And it's often dark, it's often cold, and the cafe and all that's not open. I'm not putting people off at all, but I know when I first started doing paranormal investigations, a lot of it was, we've got something, we'd like people to know what it's all about. But I think, now it's a big money thing, which, people got to make their money in this time anyway. So I'm not like saying anything, but it is an expensive thing. And if nothing much happens, you think, blimey, that was a lot of money to sit here shivering.
And not get pushed. Do you know what? Yeah. What amazes me is that like the people who don't do this and who like ask me questions about it. So if I go into work, they'll say, "Oh, do people pay you to go and do their holes then?" I'm like, "No, we pay them to go. We pay them."
Absolutely.
And they're like, "Really? How much is that then?" And when you say, "Oh, some's 800 quid, some 600 quid, some 1,000," they're like, "Really?" And I'm like, yeah, that's how much they go. I mean, the cheapest is probably about 150. But that's cheap.
That is cheap. Yeah, definitely. Particularly in some of the ones that I've seen, particularly the very famous places. And also as well, if you want to do a famous place, quite often it's better to go midweek rather than the weekend, because the weekend is even more pricey. So I also get back to your Divot box experiment, but I want to read these questions for people. Andrew,
No, that's
are you
fine.
still doing the ghost helmet, Charlene?
Oh, the God helmet.
Yes.
We will be, yes, we will be. I keep saying we're going to be doing it. But yeah, I will be. It's obviously a required taste for the viewers. But I know that some of you are interested in the results that come of that. And, you know, I've been approached about it recently because other investigators find it fascinating. So, yes, I will be. I will be heading back out of it at some point. Just need a good victim to try it on again.
I'm looking the other way.
Oh, I'm sat here chuckling.
It does worry me a bit, actually. I think most people, if people don't know what Divot box is, do let us know. I think most people do know what one is these. But if you don't know, please say, and that would be good, and that can be explained. But I'm sure there's a few people watching now that the God helmet. I've spoken to you about it before when you're on my channel. God, going back a few years now. So I thought it'd be good just to explain what it is and what kind of results you get from it.
So it was basically an experiment that was done by a neuroscientist, and he believed that wearing this helmet with EMF sending pulses out in a specific pattern could influence a person's spiritual experience. He undertook this experiment on numerous people. I can't remember it off the top of my head now. It's been a while since I first spoke about it. But I think 80% of them people reported that while they wore this helmet, they had a spiritual experience. So they were either touched, they heard things, they seen things, and you know, most of the report was they had a really scary experience from it. So we had one made, as you do. Well, I'd sourced the materials, and Andy from Infrared said, "I'll make it. Yeah, I know what I'm doing with it." And I got it, and we obviously then needed participants to have a go with it to see. And I was very skeptical of it at the time. I thought, how is this helmet gonna actually induce a spiritual experience? You know, these pulses are no more than standing probably next to the microwave for 5 minutes or being on the telephone, you know. How is this possible? Anyhow, we'd done it on Simon, so we took Simon out into the woods, blindfolded him, as some of you remember. Chrissy walked him through the woods, and he had no idea where we was going. Absolutely no idea. We plonked him down. And the idea was we really wanted him to be able to experience and see and say what he was feeling was at that location. And bugger me, he got the haunting to a T. So wow. He said that he'd seen a man in a cape, which was the main haunting there. He said, and when I say see, he was seeing it in his mind's eye. So I was saying to him, Simon, anything that comes to your mind and you're seeing at this time, I need to know. I need you to voice it out to me. It might sound silly, but I need you to say. And he did. He got the haunting to a T. Obviously, he was our team member, so, you know, even though the viewers do trust us that what we was doing was all above board, what I wanted to do is bring other people into it. So I think one for me was the Ouija brothers I bought, and I got Steve and Griff in the back of the car, put ping pong balls on their eyes. They had no idea where they were going. I took him to a Knights Templar building. Like I say, we led them in. They still didn't know where they were. Sat Griff down, and I mean, Steve says he didn't. He was probably more worried about what the EMF pulses was doing, but Steve didn't really have much of an experience with it as such, even though we were coming out with things that did tally up. But it was Griff. Griff, as soon as he walked in the building, was kind of like, I'm seeing red walls and white floors, and then, you know, he turns around and there's a picture there, and that's what it used to look like, and there was no way he could have seen that. He had ping pong balls on his eyes. There was just no way. And and the things he came out with just tallied up to the location so much. And then there was another time that we took Adam, and we took him to Antwerp Mansion. Obviously Adam is a skeptic as well, and sat him down, and he actually, during that whole process, become very, very paranoid, to the point where he thought me and Amy was messing about with him, and he actually felt somebody blow on the back of his neck, and he jumped out of his skin. In fact, because I had a pulse monitor on his finger, so you could tell he was generally scared, and something had generally made him jump, because you could see his heart rate going up, you know, from a nice relaxed 60 to 150. And yeah, he can't explain that experience. So the research that we've done with it has been rather interesting. It's just that from a viewer's point of view, looking in, some people might think, what the hell are they doing with that helmet on? But it is a genuine research project that has proven to have some interesting results with it. So,
and you're looking for volunteers then?
Yes.
It worries me a bit. But if there's anyone who says they want to volunteer, I guess would they get in contact by if they're genuine, you know, and by your website or something like that?
Yeah, you can give me a message. I mean, there is people that have said, you know, other people, you know, people have said previous goes of it and said, can I have another go of it, Charlene, you know, a different location. It's just getting the locations to be able to do it at, and being able to blindfold them, and making sure that they go in completely blind and not knowing the backstory of the location, so that they can't sit there and say it. I need that proof that the element is actually doing something.
Yeah,
to prove
absolutely.
The haunting.
I think as well, the trouble is with me being blindfolded in a car, I get awfully car sick, so I probably wouldn't enjoy that experience that much. Lots of people saying they're interested in your book, so do give them a mention about that. And so they said, are you talking about the Divic box? So we were talking about those, and if somebody is really interested, some people on there said, yeah, it's fine. You know, if you were generally interested in them, there's a lot of basically an old wine box put on eBay, faked up a bit, looks a bit old, and basically got a few burnt dolls and things and shoved them in and call it their Divic box. But if somebody really is interested, where would you suggest people go to kind of look in that area?
What, for an actual box?
Yeah.
It's an odd one. Because I wouldn't recommend eBay as such. However, I do believe that spirits can be trapped in vessels. And I do believe, you know, maybe go to somebody who claims to do that, maybe in haunted locations or something. I wouldn't necessarily go to eBay, because there is a lot of fakes on there. But sourcing a real genuine that's had an intent done on it. I think it's the intent that's been done on it, to know that an intent's been done on it, is whether or not you trust the source that you're trying to get it from is the key.
Absolutely. For me,
do I think a demon can be trapped in a box? No, I don't think a demon can be trapped in a box myself. I think a demon's far too more powerful than that. However, I do believe that there could be darker energies that could be not trapped in a box, but kind of summoned to something, binded to something. I think that's a possibility.
And personally, me, I mean, people love it, but I would probably just like to go for something with positive intention that's going to give me good luck. Personally, myself.
That's the best way to go, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. So Patco says, God, I didn't even know you had a book. Where's my copy?
I'll give you a book, Pat.
Sophie, what do you think of portals? Good question.
I believe a lot of mirrors can be portals. And I believe that people can try and open portals. The only thing is with portals is that you never know what you're going to get through. And you should always edge on the if you think there is a portal, you should always edge on a caution, because like I say, you just don't know who's going to come through. And I will bring up a scenario we went to. There was a team that did a ritual at an abandoned house, and we'd seen this ritual be done on YouTube, and the investigator that did it hasn't got my utmost respect. However, the ritual in which the woman participated in, she tried to call forth Lilith, is it? And her ritual was done to the T. She did it properly, and they had an interesting night from the evidence that we've seen. And me and Amy knew where this house were, and I said, "Shall we go? Shall we go and see if a portal's really been opened there?" And we went, and we probably had a really, really one of the most interesting nights I think we'd had in a long time. They really should have shut that down before they left, but obviously they didn't. I don't believe we were speaking to Lilith coming through, but it provided some interesting evidence. But we were obviously then we bared on the edge of caution going, because we knew that if something had been opened, potentially we could get anything through.
Indeed.
So, but mirrors are a big thing with me. I think mirrors are an opening. They have energy.
Indeed. I think so as well. There's quite a few at the Ram at Wootton Under Edge mirrors around, actually. Leanne says, can we share this? I did do a little thumb up whilst you're talking. I was trying to get in front of the camera. Yes, please do.
I can't share it on the page, unfortunately, because I'm on, but I'll share it later. But...
yeah, thank you. Anyone can make those boxes. It's just you use them that's dangerous. I've buried a few over the years in graveyards, just told to tell the priests. So yeah, so some have been buried
in graveyards.
It's a little bit like as well when we're talking about eBay. You do see a lot of people doing mystery box off the dark web, and quite often I think as well, it's a load of tat from the charity shops that they kind of burn and make it look a bit sinister and put things in there. And you know, I remember seeing one person that was opening it was basically a box of hairbrushes. Really bizarre. I think the audience were quite annoyed about that. Let's have a look what other questions we're getting through here. So another one. We'll definitely purchase your book. Content sounds really interesting, Charlene.
Thank you. And also the magazines. The magazines are actually free to read on Google Books. So all the magazines that I've previously published, they are free to read. So then there's quite a few issues on there if anybody does want to go and have a look.
Amazing. So we talk about your website, and I will ask other people's questions. Derry, I'm not quite sure what Dowell. Oh, sorry, dyslexic coming out. There's always one name which I struggle with per time. So we did say what place scared you most. We did have a similar question in it, which is anything you wouldn't go back to. But is there anything that you think, blimey, that was actually quite a frightening place to go to? Hi,
Probably
Bon.
more on a personal experience. For me, I think for some of you that may be in the comments, you'll remember when we did Hollington Hall. I've not long written about it, actually. It was an abandoned hall not far from me. I'd heard stories about it over the years. And we was in there, and I'd actually had a panic attack before I started that live, and I haven't had a panic attack in a few years, and never at a location, but I just felt pure panic there. I felt that we was in serious danger and that something wanted to really hurt us. There wasn't really anything online at that point about anything violent or anything even haunting the hall. Apart from an urban explorer detailing that she felt that something wanted to push her out the window, and felt that she'd been, pushed towards out the window, and she ended up running from this place. But I just felt so threatened there, and we'd had a really, really good interactive music box session while we was there, and it kind of enticed me to go up the stairs more. It was one place that I was pleased to leave, and I said to Amy, I think we need to go now before we get hurt in any way. And we didn't get hurt, but then when I came back and Gina researched and found a book detailing a ghost story attached to the place, it was of a violent poltergeist who potentially has beat people up. Even a police officer, one of the reports. And I was like, well, I had every reason to feel intimidated then. And we did go back. We did go back a few weeks ago, actually, because it was open again. And I was a bit nervous about going, but I said, yeah, we'll definitely go back. I need to, got unfinished business there. And even though I'd still felt panicky going up the stairs again, but not as much as the first time. But it was more Amy this time that seemed to have a bit more effect on her, but we didn't get the level of activity or feelings as we did the first time. But if we went back again, it would be interesting to see if we got it again. But that's one place that was a bit, left me on edge about going back to. But other than that, it's just been the locations where there's been humans there, breathers.
Yeah, I can imagine.
They're the most dangerous things you've got to watch out for.
Exactly, I couldn't agree more. Robert, I don't know if that coincides with the story you were just telling us then, but have you ever been in a room and thought, what the hell just happened? Or place, really. It doesn't have to be a room, one outside. Anything like that happened?
Yes. When going back to when I used to go to events, we went to Oxford Castle, and me and my mum was the last people to leave the main old tower, and we was walking down the stairs and there was nobody behind us, and we heard a male's voice whisper in my mum's ear, hello, and then it moved, and my mum turned around and looked at me like, who was that? And then I heard it in my ear, and it went like a loud whisper, and my mum said, did you hear that? And I said, yeah, it's just said hello to you, and it's just said hello to me. And we just stood there in absolute amazement, because there was nobody else there. There was only me and my mum there. There was no other males there. So where would this voice come from? But we'd heard it, and we'd heard it as clear as day. And I think that kind of evidence, when you actually hear them, is amazing.
It is, isn't it? Absolutely. Eric, that reminds me, I need to put a cafe in the old place that I buy, and my place is going to be free. Oh, excellent. So that's excellent for paranormal investigators. Do let us know about this. This next question, Andrew, I hope this is something that you know, and it's not just to try and get me to read this out. Ask you about Black Dick's Tower.
I'm never going to be able to live that down.
Yeah, so you want to tell us about that?
Do you really want me to tell you about that, Paul?
Is it something you should tell me after we finished?
Well, what it was, it is a tower in Leeds called Blackdick's Tower, and we'd named the live In Search of Black Dick, and it probably was the most funniest intro I think you'll ever watch. We just couldn't keep it together. We were that kids. But yeah, it is a real tower called Blackdick's Tower, and the story that goes along with it it didn't help at the time. But yeah, so we're quite known for that intro. It was quite funny.
I'm a bit on the slow side of reading. It's brilliant, all the questions you're saying. So there's Pat saying about if you asked me nicely, I suppose I owe a few favours. I don't know if that's still anything that we've been talking about actually. Oh, sounds very interesting. So yeah, Patricia, she would volunteer for. I guess this is the God's helmet. Let's have a look here. Oh yeah, excellent question, Cowabunga. What parts of the brain are most affected by the helmet?
So it's the, if I can say it, peripheral gland, if I've said it right. So the gland in between here, so the pulses they're here, and so it directly into the peripheral gland. I'm quite sure that is the area of the brain.
Excellent.
So it's the area of the brain where spiritual occurrences are alleged to come forward from. So when we say through the mind's eye, we're talking about this here, aren't we? When we see, those of you in the chat who see, when we see, we don't see all the time through here, do we? We see it from here. So.
Indeed.
And this is where I say that I was asking Simon to say what he sees, not literally with his eye, even though he did catch glimpses of things. I'm literally talking from this here.
Yeah, the third eye. I'm fascinated with the God's helmet experiment, as I do believe temporal lobe has a big part to play in spiritual experiences. So I think that's the front as well.
It stimulates the temporal lobes. Thank you for reminding me, Noreen. It stimulates the temporal lobes and induces the experience from the gland.
Brilliant. Why is it called a God helmet?
It's just what the neuroscientists called it. That is what he named it. Because people was claiming to see images of God and Jesus. People was having a lot of angel experiences from it. And I think, maybe that is where the name originally kind of stems from, because of so many reports of people seeing godly presence or feeling a godly presence.
And what's this about? Don't forget Scottish graveyard rue, Billy Sherrill. Is that anything you know, or is that maybe that's a conversation?
I've just recently been to Scotland.
Anything good there that you like?
Oh, I love Scotland. It's like a second home.
Good.
Always up a graveyard.
Don't open a divot box. Anybody is asking for trouble.
Well, I've not opened mine. That is a question that people always pose to me. Are you actually going to open it? And I said, no, I'm not. It's very heavy. Whatever is in it is very, very heavy. And not really because I'm scared of letting anything out or anything. But it's quite nice to have. If there is something in it, what's the point in me opening it? Because I can't investigate it then, because allegedly I'm free in it.
Exactly.
So, I need to keep it closed if I want to experiment with it, to keep the bind attached to it.
Sophie says, I have a spirit in my flat because I have a TV facing a mirror. Is that something to do, I don't know if you're getting this as well, but like with a scrying mirror, they tend to be blacked out. Is that kind of the sorts of things that hotels often have a bit like that, don't they?
I don't know, but what I do know is there are certain superstitions that people say. So I never sleep. I've got a little mirror makeup mirror, that's on a stand, and I can't sleep with that facing me. I think it brings, personally, not saying it does, but I personally feel I have bad days if I sleep with the mirror directly over me. I think it can reflect a negative energy through the night, and there is a lot of superstitions around mirrors in the bedroom, and a lot of people cover their mirrors during the night because they feel a little bit safer by doing that. And I don't know if that comes from superstitions or because they've had experiences of seeing things through the mirror. I mean, allegedly, you can see things through the mirror that you might not be able to see in real time because they can act on a different dimension. So,
indeed.
And this is what you get with the scarring mirror. You don't have to use a black mirror. You can use a regular mirror for such things. But there's always been a theory with mirrors that they can see into another realm, which you might not be able to see around you at the time, but you can look through the mirror to see that. So, yeah, I understand what you're saying, Sophie, by what you're saying.
Patricia said, I expect there's a portal in my house. So if somebody suspects they have a portal in their house, is there anything that you can suggest that they might be able to do some tests themselves to maybe see if there is?
So I'd be asking kind of like, why do you think that there is? Do you feel like the activity you're experiencing is different all the time? Do you think that there's different energies coming in and out? Is that certain area of the room cold? I mean, I always was told that if you want to feel a portal on a mirror, if you run your hands over it, you'll feel a swirl of cold energy on the mirror, and that's how you tell a mirror as one. So if we're talking the room, if you're going in it, is there like a whirlwind of cold air in a certain area? Are you seeing things coming in and out of the corner of a room that suspects? I think if you wanted to shut it down, you probably could, but I don't think you'd be able to do it in one instance. I think it would have to take several attempts in order to shut it down, because I believe you have to break down the energy.
Now, that's good advice. We had Patrice say, what's your book called? You've always said before, but it'd be nice for people they might want to get on and open another tab and look it up and maybe purchase both your wonderful books. So if you can just say them again, a quick shout out to your books again, please.
So it's Paranormal Hauntings is the first one I did, and then Paranormal Hauntings, the book edition. And if you're wanting the magazines, if you type in Paranormal Hauntings magazine on Google Books, you'll be able to download it for free.
Good, thank you. And Robert, what freaks you out the most for me? It's dolls, and I think that would be an ideal sort of segue into Elizabeth, the doll, as well. So if we can put those both in together, please.
So I've always had a bit of a fascination with dolls, and I'm not going to lie, that originally came from Jane Harris, seeing Jane Harris research on dolls. We're talking about 2015, 2014. I then went on to work with items. So I've worked with the most haunted item, picture in the world. quite good mates with him, who owns the Anguish Man. Dolls, I was skeptical at the time, but we had one Pacific doll come to us that was actually from Jane Harris, called Elizabeth, as she proved to have some interesting results at the time. She is still with me. She doesn't really do a lot with me. However, I have loaned her out to men specifically because I have a feeling that she doesn't like being with men, or she likes to have an influence over men. And she has done things to him. Simon, it completely messed him up. She stayed with him for a few weeks, even though he'd not admit it publicly. But he's like, you're going to have to get rid of this doll, Shosh. I've got having dreams about her, and I was scratched by her, and all sorts. And then I lent her out to two other guys, and they'd had activity with her. Dolls are a funny one though, aren't they? Because a lot of people get freaked out by dolls. But I do think dolls can be vessels, and I think that they can be vessels because they resemble what a person looks like. And I think, you know, if a spirit needs a vessel to latch onto, well, they're going to latch onto something that resembles maybe what looks like them, or, you know, something that they find pretty. So even though they freak some of us out, I think that's, yeah, there is a logic to why spirits may. And I watched a program a few years ago. It was called Law on Amazon. Very good TV show if anybody's ever watched it. And they speak about Robert the doll, and they say that, you know, these like newborn dolls that look like a newborn baby, you know, they've got the real life features, that in years to come, you know, potentially they could have hauntings as well because their features are so realistic. But dolls have been used for years. So in Victorian times you'd have seance dolls, and I actually have got, well, it's supposed to be a seance doll, a mourning doll. So people would lose a child, they'd go to a medium and they'd bring out a doll, and they'd ask the child to use the doll as a vessel in order for the grieving parents to have a sign that their child was still around. Or mourning dolls would be buried with the child. So if the child's spirit wanted to leave, you know, when it leaving the body and needs a vessel, it'd be laid with the child, so that they'd still be earthbound in some way. So dolls and why they could be haunted go back years.
I think the Victorian dolls, you know, I think that will have a lot of energy attached to them. Most definitely. I know also the Victorians, they used to, if people died in the family, they used to dress them and have their photograph taken with the whole family, and they were very
morbid.
Yes, absolutely.
Probably the word.
There's another. Well, we're talking about Robert the doll. There's a Robert here, and the walkie-talkie incident was weird. And just before I say that, we were talking about Robert the doll, and I have to say thank you, Robert, for giving us permission to talk about you then. So, what is this walkie-talkie incident?
Is that the one with Pat, Robert? When me and Pat. Is it the REM pod just recently, or is it the one where me and Pat, we had a bloke come over on the walkie-talkie?
Well, if you can talk about both, that'd be really good. I did see something about the REM pod as well.
Okay, so me, Pat and Amy, we went to a location which was an abandoned mill, and I sensed that there was a homeless chap there, and I was convinced, and it was one of the first times that me and Pat and Amy had ever really been out with one another. And Pat kind of said, I want to come out with you and learn and experience something real, Charlene. So yeah, we went out to this mill, and I'd got walkie-talkies because I knew that it was quite a location for homeless people, and there was a bit of a risk there. So I thought, if any of us are venturing off alone, we can use the walkie-talkies. Anyway, me and Pat had gone upstairs, and Amy was at the bottom level, and she's walking around, and we're live on Pat's page, and Amy's obviously live on our page. And there was this voice that came through over onto us upstairs, and we actually thought a man was with Amy, and we'd rushed downstairs to see Amy, thinking that there was a man pestering her, and there actually wasn't a man there with her, and she'd never heard it come over on her walkie-talkie that she had downstairs. Now, walkie-talkies can obviously pick up on CB radio, I think it's called. However, I was told that CB radio would have to come through on both walkie-talkies. So if it was interrupting the channel that we was on, because we was on the same channel, it would have been heard on both walkie-talkies, not just on ours. But it wasn't. I'd look back through Amy's footage on our page, the voice wasn't there. Look back on the footage on our page, on Pat's page, and it was there. So I don't believe it was CB radio coming through at all. I think that was personally the man that I felt was there coming through, and it'd been quite a responsive night there as well. If he's talking about the REM pod just recently, that's an whole different scenario in itself. So we went to Robin Hood's grave, and there's so much associated to that grave is unreal, and whether or not, I don't think a real person is maybe a real person had been buried there at some point, called Robin. Whether or not it was Robin Hood, I don't know, but I don't think there is a body there anymore. I think they've had to remove it, actually, looking through old newspaper clippings. But yeah, there's so much reported with that grave. It's unreal. And what we had happening is we was having the REM pod go off, which is unusual for us because we've had this REM pod since Halloween, and it's not triggered off once. And we go out to Robin Hood's grave, and it's going off like clappers, and we were like, we don't know what's going off here. And we've obviously then got the spirit box on, and we're trying to communicate with whoever is trying to interact with the REM pod. And what happens is Amy hears the REM pod be projected through the spirit box, and Amy says, did you just hear that? The REM pod come through the spirit box. And at the time I didn't hear it. I was looking at the comments, and we didn't really then question it any further. We wanted to review back. So when we got in the car, Amy said, let's have a listen to that. So we did. And I said, bloody hell, I said, the REM pod come through the spirit box, and it seems so small. It really, really does. You know, to the viewer, you want to see a ghost, I understand that, and you want to hear a ghost, I understand that. But what happened with that is something that shouldn't happen. The REM pod should not come through on the spirit box, and I don't even know how it did. We've used that REM pod and spirit box for so long that it's never done that before. I've used other REM pods and a spirit box, and I've never heard it. And you know, I've gone to other investigators and I said, have you ever had your REM pod come through on your spirit box? And they've been like, no, what are you on about? It shouldn't be doing that. And I'm like, well, I know it shouldn't be doing that, but have you ever had it? Because we know that sometimes equipment can interact with one another. And I can understand if like a walkie-talkie triggers off the REM pod, because that interference is happening with the REM pod. But this was the reverse. This was actually the REM pod admitting through a channel. You know, it's EMF, and I know it's a frequency, but it just didn't make sense. So I'd approached some skeptics as well and asked them, and they said, I don't think it's physically possible. I don't know what you've had happen, and I'm not saying a ghost has done it, but you've had a strange experience. I had some people comment on the video that I did, saying it was the batteries, this, that, and the other, but no, it's not the batteries. I mean, if we're going to think it's the batteries can in any device then could trigger off any device, that we use. They all wouldn't be interacting with one another, and there'd be no point in using them, So it was an interesting capture, and even though it seems very, very small, scientifically, it really, really shouldn't have happened. And I know that Steve at the time tried to replicate it and couldn't. And the only thing that we're going to truly know is if we kind of keep experimenting with it and seeing, when the REM pod goes off, if the spirit box, you can hear it. I mean, we not long investigated that weird shop in Nottingham. We had the REM pod going off and we didn't hear it through the spirit box then. So that's one occurrence, and it hasn't occurred, and I don't know if it will ever happen again. I hope it doesn't, because if it doesn't, it means that it was something genuine and something strange. So if it occurs again and again and again, I'd be more inclined to think and give it more of a logical explanation that actually this specific spirit box that I'm using might actually be able to somehow transmit the REM pod. But hand on heart, I don't think it is possible at this point. So
interesting that happened.
I probably waffled on about that far too much than what I should have. It was just so excited at the time.
No, absolutely. It was really interesting. Thank you for saying that. And about the radios beforehand, when I was at I used to work in the music venue, the Guild Hall. It was music. It was all sorts of different things I used to do there. But we used to have radios that we used to talk to each other on, and you would get the taxis. But if I remember rightly, they all went off at the same time, and it would often be something like, pick up your call from 18 Spa Road or something like that would come through. This is an interesting one, right on my sort of topic I like. And Carol Baldwin's here. Hello to you. And if I missed anybody saying hello, I apologise. Have you ever gone anywhere and sensed you've been there before in another life?
I have, yes. And I'm trying to think of an example, because it's happened quite a few times and I can't off the top of my head. But yes, I have. I have been to places and I thought, I know this place. I've been here before. And it's a very, very strange feeling when it happens. But I can't think off the top of my head a specific place. But it has happened.
Yeah, well, if you say, just let us know, because it'd be interesting, or let me know. I'd be really interested.
I'll try and recap.
Probably when you're not thinking about it and just trying to get off to sleep tonight, it'll be like, oh yes, that.
Oh yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. How do you experiment?
Well, one minute. There is one place, and it's in Scotland. And it's the Stones, Canash Stones, Stone Circle that I've been to, and I was really apprehensive about going there before I went. Felt a bit nervous. It felt like I was going back to somewhere, and I went there and walked round, and I just thought, I used to be here. I just knew that I used to have some association with that place, and I don't know if some of you maybe remember, I ended up doing a spirit box session there, and it kind of indicated that I could have been with the responses that was coming through, which was interesting. But yeah, there has been other times, like when I've been on a street and I thought I've been here before, and I thought, but I haven't actually been here before, but it all looks so familiar.
Yeah, interesting. As you know, I love that sort of thing. Patricia says, how do you experiment with the Divock box?
Well, we've ran numerous lives with it, tried to encourage it to do things. If it is around, I have actually had knocking on it before. I've had something what sounded like it moved in it. So trying to get to replicate that. I haven't worked with it for such a long time though, and the reason being is because there is so many out there that it kind of looks like you're just using it and working with it because you're trying to follow a bit of a trend with it, and it wasn't about that. It wasn't at all when I first bought it. I'd bought it because I was generally interested in it, and it wasn't something that was trending at the time. It was something very, very different at the time. I also had stains appear on it. and I don't know why them stains appeared on it. Just one day I'd gone in. There could be some logical explanation to why there was stains on it, maybe condensation, I don't know, but there was like what appeared like just stains going all the way down it. So yeah, it's just a case of trying to investigate it as you would a location, really.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
just put in the practices that you would with a location into just an item, because at the end of the day, really, an item is no different to a location, really. The only thing is if you've got an item, it's actually a good thing, because you can spend more time with it, you can invest more time with it, and you can experiment with it. Where a location, you go there for a night, you might do 8 hours, you might not get an awful lot, you might go back in 6 months' time, you know. But if that item's yours, you can work with it as many times as you want and study it and document it, and in a way, it's better.
That's an interesting perspective, and I never really thought of it in that way before, so thank you, Pat, for asking that one. Robert says, next time you're in Scotland, visit Loudon Kirk. I hope I'm saying that right. Highly active, one of my favourite places before moving to England.
I think I've heard of that, Robert. I think I think David Barrett's investigated in, and he suggested me to go there before, but never been.
Sorry. Very interesting question from Cowabunga. About the God helmet, do people continue to experience even after wearing it? That's a really good question.
No. Nobody. The only thing I've had with it is Steve said he had an headache with it after, and it made people very, very tired. And I don't know if that's because there was a concentration or meditation with it. Because obviously we're playing white noise through their ears so that they can't even hear what we're saying at the time as well. So yeah, a bit of a headache, but no dreams or such, or strange experiences happening after. No.
And Neil, have you ever seen a ghost directly in reality?
I believe so. But we was actually in the paper for this, so it was the police. I don't know if you was watching at the time, Neil, but we'd investigated a tunnel, and we'd ended the live, and we decided to close it down, and we decided to close ourselves down under the moonlight. And this man appeared out of the bushes, identified himself as a police officer, and then quickly ran towards my car and faded into my car. It was very, very strange. We actually thought it was a breather, because that's what we say. And we'd looked for him under the car, we'd looked for him in the brambles, we'd gone down the road for him. We couldn't find this person anywhere. And I'd said, turned around to Chrissy and I said, well, he faded into my car, Chrissy. And I said, I think that was a ghost. And she went, do you think? I said, I honestly think we've just seen and experienced our first ghost. And some of you will remember we did a live down the road because we'd been looking for him, and my face, you can tell in my face that I was just pure shocked and didn't know what the hell had just happened and what the hell we'd just seen. And people probably think, well, you know, you're a ghost hunter, so why are you shocked? Why are you scared? Why do you look like that? And I think it was because I didn't expect them to look as physical and as solid as you and I didn't expect it. I think I had an interpretation that there was a bit mister, you might be able to see through him, you know. And I think we've had another occurrence since then. And we was going to a private house with Adam. Some of you may remember this. And it was like on a farm. And I picked up on a monk in the front room. But anyway, just before we'd pulled into their drive, there was a field. and there was this man, and he looked like he was dressed in old clothing, and he was right at the back of the field, and he was just walking, and he'd seen our car, and he just stopped dead. And Amy said, "What's his problem?" And I went, "I don't know, but he's looking at our car as we come in." And she went, "Well, that's a bit weird, isn't it?" And I went, "Well, yeah." I said, "Well, where does this field lead?" She went, "I don't know." Anyway, so we get into this house, and this field actually leads on the back of the house we was investigating. And the woman said to us, "There's been a gentleman sighting in the field." And we said, "We've seen a man in the field coming in. Is that public access?" And she was like, "No." No, that's not public access. There should be nobody in that field. So, I mean, obviously we're not 100% sure, and we're never truly going to know. But the fact that we'd seen a man and he stopped dead and kind of made a point in standing there staring at us, and then the woman's telling us that a man's been reported in that field. Is it coincidence? I don't know, but.
It was
strange.
It's like when I saw a ghost, the first instance that I thought was a person locking up the shop that we were investigating at the time. And it's only when I realised they walked through a wall that I actually realised that it was a ghost. And like you're saying, it didn't have the mistiness, see-throughness. It was just like looking at a person. So it makes you wonder, and I know I've said it before, how many times we may have seen ghosts and spirits whilst we're doing it every day and don't even know because they haven't done anything weird at all. So, I mean,
there is incidences, and I always bring it up. And there's a skeptic that I know from Paranormal Truth, and he had a bit of an experience because he messaged me about it. And what happened is, he'd seen a friend of his walking down the street, and he'd nodded to him. It was in a city centre, and he wasn't a close friend. He's just somebody who used to work with, and he'd nodded to him, and he said hey up to him, and he didn't really acknowledge him. He just nodded to him back, and he thought, "Well, he's a bit ignorant." Anyway, he went to his mum's a few days later and said, "Did you hear about such and such dying last week?" And he said, "You are?" He went, "Such and such died last week." He went, "No, he didn't. I only seen him on Monday." She went, No, he's dead." She went, "I only seen him on Monday. I'm telling you, I said hey up to him." She went, "Well, I'm telling you, he died last week." And, it just kind of make you question, if they're that physical, who are we actually walking past on the street? Do we really know? And when we turn our backs, are they people walking through the wall?
Exactly. And one incredible story as well. Very sad for the friend and the family of the friend, but one incredible story. Mandy, hello to you. Says, "Poor Simon, the things you...
He
poor
loves
Simon,
it, really.
The things you do to, yeah. Is he a bit like the Aaron out of Ghost Adventures at all and has to go into...
Well, he's the one that, I don't know how many people know this, but actually Simon used to live with a poltergeist. So he is very much a believer. And he has witnessed some stuff before, and he probably won't speak about it because it's personal to him, and it's on a deep level. But he has witnessed some things. But he is very logical, so he's come back into it, and he wants to know the truth. But he's very, very logical in the way he investigates because he truly wants to know the truth. He don't want BS. He doesn't like to use apps because he wants more solid evidence for him. That kind of thing. He's got a high level of evidence that he needs because he lived with a poltergeist for so long and witnessed it firsthand and realised that actually these ghosts didn't need these pieces of equipment. So I like to try things on with Simon because everybody knows that if he thinks something's crap, he'll say it's crap, and and if he has a genuine experience, it is genuine because he's not the type of person to not be honest about it. And I want him to have an experience for him, you know. I like the fact that I can sometimes put people in situations and be like, right, you know, let's see if we can get you an experience here. And when something actually does, and they're like, wow, you know, that was amazing, then that's my job done as an investigator. Really.
Yeah, and as you say, he loves it.
Well, it's like with Amy. I mean, Amy was very, very skeptical of mediums. And I'm not claiming to be a medium, but I do have a sensitive side where I do pick up. And I can remember when we first went out on one of our first investigations was at an RAF hospital. And I said, there's a gentleman here and he's walking around. And I said, 1 minute, bear with me. I'll see if he can physically walk around for us. So I ask out and I'm calling out and I'm saying, you know, can we physically hear your footsteps for me, please, sir? And the next minute we get doosh, 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 doosh. Amy's like, this is staged. What's going on? I need to go and have a look. I said, Amy, I'm telling you, you need to trust me. Even though you've just met me, I'm telling you, this is the spirit. And I said, but you go ahead. You go and have a look around the building and see if there's anybody else here. And she did. Nobody else was there. And I said, right, so let's pull it back in again. Let's see if we can get him to do it again. And he did. And she was like, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. But that is the kind of, and that wouldn't happen all the time. I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet here, but that is the kind of evidence I strive for, to give. If I feel something at 120%, I like for people that I'm with investigating to feel that with me and experience that with me, because I'm feeling them. So please give me the evidence to back me up, and if they can, that's brilliant.
Absolutely. And you know, I know you're a very honest person as well. I can't believe how quickly this time's going, which is great. I mean, it's been absolutely fascinating, everything that you've been saying, and thanks everybody as well.
I'm sorry if I've waffled.
Oh, it's brilliant. I like detail. I like detail. I used to do a bit of media at one point, and used to do Vox Pop's voice of the people, and I like somebody to talk and give me answers, because so many times you'd ask me, how do you feel about that? Yeah, it's not too bad. And you know, great, I got to try and fill the rest in here. So I like somebody to go into detail. It's been really, really good. I was just going to say something, because I usually don't say anything about myself 99.9% of the time whilst doing these lives. But this is the last one that I'm doing tonight. But don't worry, you can still catch me on my YouTube channels, Paul Goddard NLP and Hypnotherapy, Past Life Regressions with Paul Goddard Paranormal. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram. So I will be doing some stuff, and you will be seeing me on my Facebook as well. And also on Exploring the Afterlife, they said I won't be a stranger. I'll be coming back as a guest on it as well. So now I'd really like to get to the people who like to see your investigations. Again, please plug your books, your magazines, the past issue, everything that people can follow, like, share of your stuffs. Please let them know about that.
So we're live on our Facebook page, which some of you may know. We tend to go out at least once a week, try to. I've also got a website, which is www.paranormalhauntings.blog, which you can subscribe to for free. You will just get my blogs that as I write them directly into your email. But like I say, that there's no subscription fee. I don't ask for anything. It's just for the pure love of it. You can find my books on Amazon, just type in Paranormal Hauntings, and you can also find free magazines on Google Books as well. They are still there and able to read along with a few other things on there. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, and I highly recommend. I'm quite busy myself, but when I do manage to catch in and see the live broadcasts, and I've been looking through the website today, it's a great resource. So I'll be getting your books as well, most definitely.
Thank you.
Sophie, I'm getting towards the end of this now, so I'm going to be a bit more choosy of the questions that I ask.
We'll be
So I
here
do
all night,
apologise
Paul.
for that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people are loving it, which is great. What's the best app to use for ghost hunting? Because a lot of people like apps. There's mixed feelings
They
about it.
do.
I like them, but what would you
I,
say
I
your best
used
one is?
I used to use apps religiously. You'd never ever see me without an app. Nowadays, I've gone away from apps because I need more evidence for me. Um, there is some good ones on there. I think my best advice would be to go out there, Google them, look at the reviews, and research the creator. If you can research the creator of the app, you can then kind of get an idea if they're in it for entertainment or if they're in it for more research purposes. If you can then grasp that they're in it for more research purposes, download their app, because it's more likely that what they put in it is more genuine and provides. It might not provide instant results, but the more you work with it and adjust yourself to it, it's a lot of patience, but keep going with it, and you'll find it will work for you, and Spirit will use it as a tool for you. I tend to use spirit boxes more often now. Not everybody can tolerate a spirit box because of the white noise. However, personally, I would say invest in a spirit box, because I think the captures within a spirit box are less explainable than on an app myself. And I know that people can say, well, it's just radio, but if you're not getting radio through and you're just getting pure white noise coming through on a session, and then you get a direct response that makes sense with what you're asking, just for me that's more evidence. I just think an app can consume your entire investigation.
Yeah,
but by all means, try them out by all means, but just do your research on the creator before you do, to make sure that they've got a genuine interest actually in the paranormal.
Because
I hope that makes sense.
No, it does. I mean, the Google Play's absolutely crammed with all sorts of different ones, swamped with it. So it's do your research. I think Steve Higgy Pop, he would be able to do because he's looked into it. So I think he probably knows it as well. So probably got something on his site.
He has. I think he's got like the top 10 apps to download, and who they're by, and an in-depth blog of who they are and whatnot, and what's best.
Bessie, I do. So Bessie, have I said hello to you, Alison? Thank you for sharing it with your friends. Thank you, Robert, for sharing it. Hello, Von. Lovely seeing you. Pat has shared it, and I think there's been other people who've shared this out as well. I know that you've shared this out, Charlene. So I really appreciate everybody that shared this out. And if I haven't thanked you personally, so I haven't known about it. So really appreciated you sharing this out. So we're getting very, very close to the end, and it's just questions and questions and questions. At some point, something else we'll have to do. We'll have to do a part 2 on somebody's channel at some point. I think most definitely.
I don't really do like question times. I only ever do question times when anybody else ever asks me. I should do, really, because I think it would be good for us to do. Because I do think we, like me and Amy, we do have a lot of knowledge that we don't actually necessarily portray to the audience, and that is something that a lot of people have said to us. You really should talk more and delve into what you actually do know, because it's pretty interesting, and people could learn a lot off you. But I suppose it's just I perhaps should at some point. But I enjoy chats when people like you invite me along.
Well, you're very good at it, and it's lovely to hear your stories. It's so fascinating, and I think we've only just really basically scratched the surface. And thanks everybody for your wonderful for questions. Yeah, it's been wonderful. I think Keith's mentioned some. Hello, Keith, a few times, and I'm sorry that I haven't mentioned it with his out. It's been loads. It's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you. Before we go, do go on Paranormal Hauntings, the website. Really, really good stuff. But the question that'll be quite nice to finish with is you've had a amazing lot of different experiences through the everything you've had. Is there one thing that you can think of that was brilliant, that was so good? And because you can go back and review the tapes, but sometimes just being that moment to experience something is just incredible. If there's one thing that you could go back and experience from the paranormal field again, what would that be?
I'm just going to list one because there is so many incidences where I think, that was good. That hearing the footsteps, having responses, kind of come forward to you. But I think one place that's in my heart is Levitt Hag. And I think the viewers, if they're on watching it, me picking up on a gentleman there and actually having what seemed like a conversation with him while I was there and saying, can you repeat where we are? It's Levitt and it says Hag, and it did get a bit sweary and we had a bit of a chuckle and but then ask it to say it's my name and it said my name and asked it to say it. It was like we was having a conversation to the point where actually one of the viewers thought we had a mic on the spirit box and was actually faking it. It was like really not, that this is communication that we're getting. And I think that was good because it flowed like a conversation. And even though there is other experiences I've had that I could probably go in all night about, I think that one stands with me because it's the longest that I've ever communicated and had the evidence to back up that we was communicating with something. And even there, when we went back the second time, EVPs is something that's quite rare, but at this specific place, it was near enough every time we did a recording we got some kind of EVP on it, and it just seemed to respond to us really, really well and provide some really, really good evidence.
Yeah, I like EVPs as well, most definitely, and that's really good to hear that. And Sal is here, Bev. Yes, I can see your comments. I probably, because I was trying to catch up, Bev, I probably missed a load of them. But as I say, it's one of those things that I just have to try and keep an eye on, and they're all coming up, and it was absolutely brilliant today. And I can still see some questions coming in now, but do get in contact with Charlene.
I will reply to you. I'll look down the chat and I'll reply to you, so I'll not miss anybody out.
Lovely. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Charlene, for being amazing, and thank you for sparing your evening. I probably will bring it to the end now because I realise for many people it's a school day tomorrow. So
it's not really because they're on strike.
Well, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I tend to say that for all sorts of work, for the people who work Monday to Friday. But it's been amazing. Must thank Lindsay and John as well for allowing me to be on their show and do these chit chats. And I've met some absolutely amazing people as well. Anyway, whatever you're doing tomorrow, have an outstanding day, and I shall see you all soon on something at some point, most definitely. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Charlene.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye night, everyone.